It began with the kind of silence that hums in a laboratory after midnight. Dr. Elena Vargas was alone with the cadaver, a subject in her university's post-mortem bioelectric study. The rhythmic beep of the machines was her only company, a stark contrast to the stillness on the table before her. She wasn't afraid of the dead. She was afraid of mistakes. The sterile scent of antiseptic hung in the air, a familiar comfort in her world of data and decay. Tonight, like every other night, was about precision, about observation, about understanding the final, faint whispers of a life that had ceased. The experiment was straightforward, at least on paper. It measured how long electrical impulses persisted in muscle tissue after death. Her sensors blinked, painting faint green lines across the monitor, proof that life as static clings to flesh long after the mind is gone. She meticulously logged every tremor, each microscopic pulse, translating the body's final echoes into cold, hard data. It was a language she understood, a language of decay and residual energy. But at 12:43 a.m., something new happened. The left hand moved. It wasn't a spasm, not the kind of random twitch she'd documented 100 times before. This was different. The fingers flexed, slow and deliberate, as though testing air they could no longer breathe. Elena's breath caught in her chest. She glanced at the monitors. The heart monitor was a flat, unwavering line. The body temperature read a chilly 78 degrees. Impossible. Yet, the muscles fired again, a slow, methodical clenching. She froze, her own heart hammering against her ribs. Logic whispered in her ear, a calm, rational voice she had trained for years. Residual, current, cellular discharge. Nothing more. It was the ghost in the machine, a biological echo. Still, she swore she saw a rhythm, a pattern in the movement, as if the hand was trying to remember how to live. Her scientific mind fought against the primal fear rising in her throat. She had to document this. She reached over and turned on the camera, her voice steady as she began narrating for the record. Subject B17 displays continued neuromuscular activity, unexplained by previous data. As she spoke, the body shifted again. A faint creak echoed from the metal table, a sound that seemed impossibly loud in the silent lab. It was followed by another slow, deliberate movement, the neck turning, just a fraction, toward her. The fluorescent lights above her flickered once, twice, plunging the room into a momentary twilight. Every rational cell in Elena's brain screamed at her to run, to get out, to leave this place. But curiosity, that same powerful, unyielding force that fuels every scientist, anchored her to the spot. She forced herself to breathe, to think. She reminded herself of the science. Dying cells still release calcium ions, causing involuntary contractions. It's the same biological principle that makes a frog's legs jump after death or a snake strike minutes after being beheaded. The phenomenon had a name, a neat clinical term. Post-mortem myoclonus. It wasn't supernatural. It was biology. It was chemistry. Nothing more. But as she watched, the pattern grew less random, more structured. Tap. Pause. Tap. The fingertips of the cadaver brushed against the metal tray beside it. The sound sharp and distinct in the quiet room. 3 times. Precise. Intentional. It was too clean, too rhythmic, to be a simple muscle spasm. A cold dread, heavier than any she had ever known, began to settle in her stomach. It felt like a signal, a message from across a chasm she had dedicated her life to studying. Her scientific detachment shattered. Her voice cracked as she leaned closer, whispering into the sterile air. If you can hear me, move again. For a heart-stopping moment, there was only silence. Then, a full shiver ran through the body on the table. One arm twitched violently. The chest rose slightly, air forced through the lungs by a pure, chaotic chemical reaction. But the sound that followed, it wasn't a gasp. It was a guttural noise that almost formed a word. At that moment, the instruments went wild. Static hissed through the speakers, a cacophony of white noise. On her monitor, the neural sensors flared to life, one by one, like a string of Christmas lights reigniting in the dark. Impossible. Brain activity after death was a contradiction? A scientific paradox? The acrid smell of ozone, the scent of burning electricity, filled the lab. Every hair on her arms lifted. And then, through the static crackle in her headset, a sound resolved itself from the noise of feedback loop that almost resembled a whisper. 2 words that would haunt her forever! Still here! Elena stumbled back, ripping off her gloves as if they were on fire. Her mind reeled, trying to process the impossible sensory input. She slammed into the far wall, her breath coming in ragged gasps. As suddenly as it began, it was over. The corpse went still again, drained of its unnatural motion. The monitors faded back to silence, their green lines flat and lifeless. She forced herself to look at the data, her hands shaking. Spikes in electrical potential. Exactly 3 minutes after the initial movement, fading after 10. Perfectly explainable, she told herself, her voice a strained whisper. Residual charge. Coincidence? A trick of the mind? But the recording showed something else. She replayed the video, her eyes glued to the screen. And there, in the faint reflection on the polished metal of the autopsy table, she saw it. After she had already stumbled back, after she had left the frame, the body's hand had moved one more time. A slow, deliberate wave. A farewell. Weeks later, the university shut down her experiment. The official reason was too many equipment malfunctions. Budget cuts, they said. But Elena knew the real reason. They were afraid of what she had found. Every night since, as she works late in her new, smaller lab, she hears it. A soft tapping on the metal of her lab bench. 3 times! Soft, deliberate, like a hand, remembering. Some say death is a switch that flips, an instant cessation of being. Science says otherwise. Sometimes, the body takes its time, finding its silence. Thank you so much for joining me on this chilling journey. If you love stories that explore the thin line between science and the unknown, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious.